Some of, and this would be for all the witnesses, some have proposed a variety of cuts in the nuclear modernization program. They argue that 2 or 3 of the triad are too expensive, unnecessary, and redundant. They also suggest that we might save money by life extending current systems for several more decades. This is what we've been doing in the past, the Band-Aid approach. And so I would ask you, each one of you, to say, do you agree with these suggestions I've just articulated, starting with you, Ms. Creedon?
Thank you, Senator Inhofe. Almost all of our delivery systems are extraordinarily old and have been extended pretty much to the end of their viable life. The one exception is probably the B-52, and I don't mean to be flip, but that will probably be with us forever.
Yeah, it already has been, yeah.
But with respect, certainly, to the ground-based strategic deterrent, the new system that will replace the Minuteman III ICBMs, and the Columbia class for the Ohio class, and the B-21, all of those are absolutely necessary and have to be replaced.
Good. Mr. Miller.
Sir, the triad we all acknowledge came about because of inter-service rivalry in the 1950s. But ever since it has been enforced, it has been recognized by every successive administration since President Eisenhower's, Democratic and Republican administrations alike, as serving a unique feature. The various different vulnerabilities and various different offensive capabilities that the triad brings totally confound an enemy planner who would try to create a viable strategic surprise attack on the United States. As my colleagues have said, those forces which were built in the 60s were modernized by President Reagan. They should have been modernized in the George W. Bush administration, but have not been. And we've had 2 successive Strategic Command commanders, Admiral Haney, now retired, and General Hyten, who have said those forces are going to have to be retired soon, in the next decade, with or without replacement. We've got to modernize the triad and its command and control, and as Ms. Creedon said, the nuclear weapons infrastructure.
Sure. General Kaler.
I agree with my colleagues. Each leg of the triad contributes something important, and together they provide us with a deterrent effect that you're not going to duplicate with a missing leg. I would only highlight one other thing because it doesn't get enough attention, and I'm sure General Hyten mentioned this in his testimony the other day, at least I hope he did. That's the necessity of modernizing our nuclear command control communications that support the triad. That has equal importance. We've often called it sort of the hidden leg of deterrence. I think it's true. It doesn't get enough attention, and I would just urge you to make sure that the investment in nuclear C3 is commensurate with the investment in the forces. We can't overlook it any longer. If you want to look at maybe some of the oldest pieces of the nuclear deterrence system, I think you would probably find that in the C3 system, we have some of the oldest elements. So please don't ignore the C3 piece.
Excellent. Yeah, I would have to hurry to get to the other question that I'm asking all of you. Some of the suggestions that have been proposed are cutting the new cruise missile, the long-range standoff weapon, which is the LRSO, because of its destabilizing. If we were to cancel the LSRO program, do you believe that the air leg of the triad would still be an effective deterrent a decade from now? Let's start with you, Ms. Creedon.
Thank you, Senator. The LRSO was a decision that was made during the Obama administration to replace the existing air-launched cruise missile, which, again, like the other systems, had far outlived its usefulness. It was extraordinarily hard to maintain. So in this instance, it's a one-for-one replacement. It continues a capability that has been with us for a long time, and because of the increase in IADS, the air defenses, having a new stealthy cruise missile to go along with the new air capabilities is essential.
Mr. Miller?
I agree with everything that Ms. Creedon has said, and I do want to address your comment that some people in this town believe that it's destabilizing. That's an interesting concept because throughout the 1980s and beyond, the United States deployed nuclear-armed and conventional-armed cruise missiles. They were not seen to be destabilizing. And if they're destabilizing, then the question has to be asked, in whose eyes? Russia is busily deploying both nuclear and conventionally armed cruise missiles today, as are the Chinese. So while I understand that some people in Washington think it's destabilizing, the fact is that the potential adversaries do not and are putting these systems in the field.
Excellent comment. Anything?
I would only add that whether or not something is a new weapon, I think, is in the eye of the beholder. I don't view any of the capabilities we've talked about here as new weapons in that they are not new capabilities. And the one thing that hasn't been said, an air-launched cruise missile, a nuclear-capable air-launched cruise missile, makes our long-range standoff bombers viable well into the end of their service lives in another 20 or 30 or 40 or maybe longer years. And it makes a penetrator like the B-2 or the B-21, which is what it will be intended to arm as well, makes it more lethal because it extends its range. So I think that continuing to have a long-range nuclear-capable missile that our bombers can deliver is essential for deterrence in the future.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to try to stay on course here. And so what I'm going to do is the other two questions I was going to ask all three, I'm going to ask for the record unless they are addressed by my colleagues. Thank you very much. Senator Reed.